TikTokers Who Did Terrible Things, Episode 6, Snow the Salt Queen, otherwise known as Yandere.Freak, creator class type, cosplayer, specialty, all things anime, claim to fame, a combination of the two as well as a very bad decision. So the beginning of this story really and truly takes us back to 2016, about 1 year prior to Musical.ly being switched out for TikTok. Now, for those of you who don't know, Musical.ly was created back in 2014, and most of the content produced on that platform involved many cosplayers from all over the world lip-syncing along to their favorite songs, hence the name Musical.ly. However, there was a Chinese app called Douyin that was very heavily growing in popularity in the Eastern world, and one of the easiest ways for them to gain a foothold in the United States and the Western world was to simply buy out another app based in the United States. It was in 2017 they set their eyes on Musical.ly, bought them out, and simply switched out the name for TikTok. And for a lot of us out there at the time, there was also another app called Vine. That being said, most of the creators on the early form of TikTok were still producing similar content than what was on Musical.ly, and other users wanting to watch something else other than cosplayers just lip-syncing along had been using Vine for quite some time. However, along with the Musical.ly buyout, Vine started to rapidly decrease in popularity, sending most of its creators over to TikTok as well. And it was during this time period a lot of those early TikTok creators who were here since before the changeover began clashing and lashing out at people moving over from Vine. In essence, they could see the app going in a completely different direction with less and less emphasis on catering to the cosplay community. And I quote, "People who had made Musical.ly what it was," end quote, felt like their platform was being completely ripped away from them. As a matter of fact, you can still see a few videos to this day of those Musical.ly creators lashing out on camera, literally screaming about what had happened. And well, over time, TikTok would allow for longer and longer content. And this is sort of where Snow the Salt Queen, or Yandere.Freak, comes into play. You see, she had started posting content on Musical.ly back in 2016. And not only would she persevere through the changeover, by 2018, she had accumulated almost 1.6 million followers on the platform. Well, this, coupled with the fact she had almost 86,000 followers on Instagram, it just seemed that with each and every post, the snow was going to keep accumulating everywhere she went. Now, it's worth noting that throughout this time period, Snow had become no stranger to stepping into the spotlight over certain controversies, and each and every time she did something the cosplay community did not agree with, Marianne would immediately clap back at not only her entire fan base, but the internet as a whole, whether that be on YouTube, Instagram, or you guessed it, her TikTok. With that in mind, we will begin with the lesser of the two evils. So on one night, Snow, along with a few of her friends, had gone into a cemetery in order to shoot a few videos. And while this in and of itself is considered to be rather harmless, when you find out she had literally been dancing on people's graves, leaning up against their tombstones while grinding her dirty boots all over them, a majority of the cosplay community will begin to call her out, saying things like, "We do not really accept this individual into our community. We as a whole do not agree with the things she's been doing, so please don't associate this with the way that most of us are," which I feel like is a pretty valid statement. Well, as stated before, Snow would immediately lash out at absolutely everybody, pretty much telling them to grow up and get over it. And here it is, the reason you have been watching this video. On January 17th of 2021, Snow, along with several of her friends, had been drinking in her home located in Houston, Texas. And not only had they been drinking, Snow herself had been smoking quite a bit of weed throughout that night. Well, the last time Snow went into the garage to light up, she stumbled across a gun that had been left there by her ex-boyfriend. Not really thinking anything of it, she picks it up, places it in her pocket, and goes back inside to continue watching Gotham with the rest of her friends. And a little after midnight, as they had just began watching a scene in which Penguin brandishes a firearm, Snow would pull that gun out and begin waving it around, saying things like, "Look, I have a gun just like Penguin does," and this weapon had just started being tossed around as if it was a toy amongst all of her friends, more so with no regard for gun safety in and of itself. Now, as the weapon makes its way back to Snow, one of her friends says, "Hey, you should shoot me." So she puts the gun up to this individual's head, and after a few seconds, lowers it down. Well, her friend Helen, sitting right next to her, would say, "Oh, do me next, do me next." Well, Snow once again lifts the gun up, places it on the forehead of Helen, pulls the trigger, and just like that, what had started out as a fun night watching movies and TV shows alongside her friends turned into one of the most horrifying scenes to touch the cosplay community. The gun had been loaded and chambered the entire time it was being tossed around. As a matter of fact, it is a wonder no one else had been injured while this gun had been making its rounds amongst her friends. Well, emergency services were notified, and upon showing up, while Helen was still alive, it was found that there was absolutely no brain activity going on inside her head. And within just a few days of being on life support, Helen would finally succumb to her injuries. Well, as for Yandere.Freak, she would initially make a statement to the police, pretty much trying to pin it on her ex-boyfriend, who had apparently said he had unloaded that gun before he left. Again, trying to immediately distance herself from the responsibility of what had gone down. As for Snow, she was arrested on that fateful night, and the process of charging her with manslaughter in the first degree would begin. However, just a few days later, she would post a $20,000 bail, walk out, and begin posting content like this.
My insides are red, yours are too, and the red on my face is matching you. And goodness, you're bleeding, what a wonderful feeling. You're down and you're bleeding, my head is just reeling. The red means I love you.
And for the first while, no one had any reason to believe that anything shocking had been going on. But as time went on and the news broke out, people from all over the world will begin lashing out at her for her negligence on that fateful night. That being said, Snow could not handle the heat within that kitchen, deleting both her Instagram and her TikTok accounts. With that, most of the friends she did have prior to this incident had began to completely disown her, cutting all ties and communications with Snow. And just when you think this story could not get any worse, Mary Ann Oliver Snow, or Yandere.Freak, would violate her parole a total of 14 times over the next few months, a list of which included, but was not limited to, allowing her ankle monitor to die for more than a period of 4 hours, not checking in with her parole officer, and violating her curfew several times, yet again showing she is absolutely not taking any of this seriously whatsoever. Now, with all that in mind, Helen Hastings was only 18 years old when she had her life ripped away from her, leaving her family to quite literally deal with the aftermath of this scenario all on their own. At this point, I think we can all agree, not only had this TikToker done something that was absolutely terrible, she is quite literally a terrible person as a whole. Now, for those of you who have made it this far in the video, I just have a couple of more things to add. It was also during her parole period Mary Ann Oliver would start selling nude photos to certain fans. And yet again, while many of you out there would think this is absolutely harmless, many of the characters she portrayed in those photos involved dressing up as a minor for their liking, which I think we can all agree is a rather sick thing to do for anyone. That being said, I have relentlessly been trying to find an update on this case for the last few months. This is the reason why this one has taken so long to put together. I figured since this case had occurred in January of 2021, and now it's 2023, that Snow would have actually been charged and convicted of this crime. Now, allegedly, a few people seem to believe she was charged with 3 counts of manslaughter in the first degree. I have simply not been able to find any evidence online of any updates pertaining to this case since 2021. That being said, I don't know if they're just trying to sweep this under the rug and keep it out of the public eye as much as possible, but every single news source I have come across just simply stops at Mary Ann Oliver Snow bailed herself out for $20,000. There has not been a single update from any one of those sites since that occurred. So that's it, y'all. That is going to do it for this episode. If you think of anything I've missed or you know of an update on this case, feel free to add it in the comments section below. In addition to this, I have been trying to get back here and run this channel as best I can. However, between work and tending to my children, I just simply haven't had enough time to get back here and run this channel. Hopefully, we will be reaching a more consistent upload rate here in the upcoming week. I appreciate your patience, and I hope to see you all on the next one.